Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Spindle TV class. Looks like I am going solo right now. A few of the guys that usually join me on screen are not here right at the moment, but that's fine. We will continue on, and I'm sure they'll pop in a little later. But a year and a half ago, you mentioned you were working on a class to import your Hulk 3D model. Oh, that never went anywhere right now, Brooks. That's a little bit too advanced for what tonight's class is, but that hasn't gone anywhere. It actually got it fell between the cracks somewhere. I haven't even worked on that Hulk model. I met with Vectric. We went through a process of importing it and how it would be possible and all the things that we had to go through it. And I kind of gave up on the idea. But it might be something I can revisit and everything. It was just a little bit too much at the time and everything. But good evening, good evening. All right. So tonight we are going to continue on. So last week, last Wednesday, we had an introduction to 3D modeling and kind of the beginner steps and stuff. We talked about components versus composite models. Components are the parts that are created to create a composite model. And then we talked about bear with me just 1 second. I feel so short. I feel so short when my camera's tilted like that. There we go. It makes me a little bit bigger. We talked about composite models. Hey, Ronnie, let me get you on screen here. Hey, thanks for joining me. And we talked about components. We went through an introduction of the tools. We looked at the shape making tool and the 2-rail sweep and the weave and extrude and weave tool, which I call the single line sweep tool. But we went through and we talked a little bit about sculpting and making sculpting brushes and all. Well, now we're going to tonight's class is going to include those that don't have Aspire. Parts of tonight, we're going to be talking about importing a 3D model, a third-party 3D model. We're going to be talking about, that. And so that'll apply to VCarve users, Desktop Pro and Aspire. And then we're going to talk about, a few other things. Now, we are going to talk about some more Aspire modeling tools, such as the emboss tool and things. So it's going to be kind of a continuation of what we covered last week, just kind of some next steps and things. We're going to talk about two-sided models as well. We'll try to get to that for sure and everything. So I am going to say, what are you doing?
Maybe it's my connection. Seems to have frozen.
I think it's me.
Well,
No.
Yes. Oh, there you are. Like I say, it could be my connection. I'm not sure.
There. Second run.
Well, let's see.
Well, I see two of us.
I see two, but Laney seems to be frozen right now. Unless it's on my end, I'm not sure, but I can hear you okay.
Yeah, nope, I can't see him either.
Yeah, he's frozen on my screen right now.
Okay. I was watching him live yesterday, and his internet was going down again, and he was having to go online through a hotspot on his phone. So looks like he's got a continuation of that.
Yeah, I had to watch that episode late last night. I wasn't on it live, but I recall him having to do that. Uses his hotspot, I think.
Yeah,
How's your day going?
pretty good.
Yeah, right on.
My in-laws used to live about 60 miles south of him, so I know where he's at in Florida, and yeah, there's definitely no good internet there.
Well, I'm amazed living out in the Ozarks here in Arkansas that I get any decent Wi-Fi connection. But past 15 years, amazingly enough, it's pretty dependable, pretty good.
Huh. I'm in the Detroit area, and
Okay.
can't argue with it here.
I was going to say, you should have the real good stuff there.
Yeah. So which machine do you have? What do you like playing with?
I've got a Shop Saber, comes
Okay.
out of Minnesota there, and got a they call it the Pro 408. It's a 4x8. Got a 10 horse spindle on it, 10 ATC with 10 tool positions on it. Although I only have the most I ever have loaded up at one time, even on cabinet jobs. I only have 5 tools at one time. So, but I know a lot of people, man, they stack them in there.
Oh, I'll bet. That's my dream setup. Yeah. I've got I got a digital wood carver, the 2440. That's the biggest one I've got. I got 2 Shakapo 3s, XLs, and then I got a little baby Next Wave SD, and
Nice.
so forth.
Well, you got quite a few.
But man, that ATC, I wish these guys would get off. And
I don't think I could. I don't know if I could ever go. I just couldn't do it.
Okay.
Having the ATC is a
hopefully
dream.
everyone
Hey,
can
Laney.
hear and see me now.
Yeah, I can.
Hey, JR.
hey,
I had this laptop that I'm using, or this computer I'm using. I had the network set to connect to my CNC. I had to go back and change the settings so it could connect back to the internet. So my Ethernet cable was connecting to. So sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. We should all be back. Ronnie, sorry about that. That was on me. I had my Ethernet set to a specific IP so it would connect to that new CNC. And I forgot to change the IPv4 or whatever back to automatically detect its anyway. Sorry about that. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. That was a faux pas on my part. I'm not, as you can tell with all these technical issues, I'm not a techie guy. I need to put a computer guru on my staff if I could afford one. If I could afford a staff. You do
JR.
You do. Man, maybe you and I could talk off scenes, and you could kind of point me in the right direction or something, because Lord of mercy, I go through so much shit. But anyway, I was in the process of greeting Ronnie and now JR. Thank you for joining me before everything went black. So thanks everybody for still hanging out. Y'all had faith in me. You knew I was coming back. So how are you doing tonight?
Doing good. Ronnie and I were just sitting there having a conversation, waiting for you. I'm already lusting over his machine.
Yeah, well, I'm not stressing anymore about it. I know that I have to work out my shoes and stuff. I was like, man, this laptop is fast. So I'm connected to a desktop and a laptop together. The desktop is handling all the software, the Vectric Aspire and all that stuff, and the laptop is handling the network because it streams faster. And I was like, man, this laptop is just, I've never seen it act this crazy. And it's because I had the Ethernet set to connect to my CNC. So sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. It was looking for a specific IP address, which was not there. So Gerard, you, anyone else see Laney laggy? Am I laggy to y'all? Am I laggy to y'all now? Gerard, it might take you a minute to catch up. So here's the rundown, because I probably wasn't covering very well, but last week we started with some beginning steps on CNC, right? When I've already recapped very quickly. We talked about the difference between components and the parts of the components. All those component parts make up a composite model. Talked about a kind of a little brief overview of each of the tools, shape creating tool, 2-rail sweep and things. And then we talked about the component trees and how levels interact with one another. And at the end of everything last week, we ended up kind of just building a little model of a Mickey Mouse. Well, tonight, we're going to be looking at how to import a model that's a third-party model. We're going to talk about the different model types and stuff, and what you should look for in all as far as model types. And then we're going to look at two-sided models tonight. We're going to talk about embossing models and how that can help us in ways, and then importing models. So we're going to kind of continue on. And as far as blurry, Gerard, on your depending on what area you're in and everything, on your YouTube, there should be a little gear icon at the bottom of your video where you can change the setting from the default. I am streaming in 1080p, so you should be able to change the resolution higher, and that should clear everything up for you. For some reason, YouTube kind of sets the default at like 420p or something like that. It's crazy. But it says, Kool-Aid says, hello from Chicago. You're delayed and sound like a robot. So I don't get it. I don't know if it's StreamYard or what, but Ronnie and JR, you hear me, right?
I hear you good.
Yeah. I hear you good. You know, the video, as you're moving around, there is some latency in your movements.
Okay.
But, I hear you good. Just in your, in the resolution on the video, there's some latency there.
All right. Let me see if I can connect both my LAN Ethernet and my Wi-Fi. I don't know if you can do both at the same time, where one will pick up after another. Let me see. We will see if that improves anything. I've got two networks going now, so we'll see if that picks up anything or improves anything. If not, I do not believe. Let me look real quick and see if I can change my stream settings. I could back my settings down from 1080p to 720p. I don't know if I want to do that though. Okay, let's see what happens, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know. And you're blurry and lagging. Let me hear it. Hold on a second. Oh man, give me a second, guys and girls. Let's go. Let's back up. All right. See, the JR and Ron, it says you guys are perfect. It's only me. It's only me. Why do people living in Florida have crappy internet? Right.
Because you're in the middle of the state there.
Right. That's what someone commented. They said, why do people have? So that was their comment. Well, let me know if you can, if I get any better. Clear video, but the audio is spotty. We'll see what we can do with it. If not, I don't know. I honestly don't know. Other than me doing a reboot or something, and maybe that'll clean up. I'm not sure. I honestly don't know. All right. Ronnie is really clear, Gerard says. So, Ronnie, whatever you're doing right. JR, whatever you're doing, you're doing right. It's evidently just me. The host, of course, the guy who's actually teaching the class can't be seen or heard.
Right.
You guys can see me, right? And hear me.
Yeah.
Forget that I'm talking about us because we're backstage or we're kind of with each other in the same stream. So you can you kind of get all right, you'll have a little bit of an advantage. I don't know what to do different. Give me just a second here. All right, here's
this, Laney. You're not as clear as the video I have of JR. And like I say, whenever you move around, there is some latency there. So it's kind of, kind of has to pick back up. It kind of gets pixelated a little bit in your movement.
All right. Now, bear with me a second. Let me just look at something. I'm doing a speed test on my computer just to see. So give me just a second, ladies and gentlemen. Hang out, talk amongst yourselves for just a moment. So here's what I have on my speed test, right? I have 337 megabytes per second on my download. And I have, hold on, it's not finished on the upload yet. I am 40.35 on my upload speed. Megabytes per second.
Lady.
That should be super fast. It's Cox. Is that who you're talking about?
Yeah.
Like my service provider, Cox.
Cox isn't too bad.
And I have their gigabit plan, which I should be at, about around 1,000 on the download speed and around 45 to 50 on the upload speed. But I'm at 330 on the download speed and 40. What did I just say? Hold on. 40.45 on the upload, which is still super fast. I don't know what if it's StreamYard.
Well, start with Cox. When was the last time your Cox router was firmware was upgraded?
I just upgraded it. All right. So I just upgraded the router. As far as firmware, I'm not sure, but the router, I had Cox come out. They ran all new wire. This was literally just less than a month ago because I wanted to get all this fixed. But I had that. They ran a new cable from the pole to the house because they said there was water in my line. Somehow water got in the line, the cable line. But they ran a new line, put in a brand new router. And it's the router that's their latest, highest version, which goes with the gigabit plan. And I'm running two systems. I'm streaming on one, working on another. So the computer with the fastest streams it's what's streaming, and then the computer with the fastest processing for the software is what's working that. It's two separate things, right? So, and neither one of them are tied together because when I switch like this, when I come in here, give me just a second, ladies and gentlemen. I know y'all didn't come to learn on my technical issues. Y'all come to learn Vectric. But when I switch to the camera in my back end, that's just a camera. It's not the a computer system. It's just reading off of a camera through a camera system through a black magic box. But yeah. So
no, you need to get Cox back. Even if you got the gigabyte plan, you should be getting a minimum of 80% is what most ISPs guarantee. So you should be up where 850, 900 on your downloads and so forth and upload.
right.
But
Let me
yeah,
let me see if I can. Give me just a moment. Give me just a moment, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if I'm clearing. Y'all let me know if I'm clearing up and all that stuff too. By the way, I don't know if I'm. What am I trying to do here? I am trying to get to Google. Okay, give me just a second. What's so?
Reading a comment from Jim Matthews.
I think they're lying to you. Yeah. If we can help fix the tech issue, it's a win-win, right? Now, just so you know, JR, on my other computer, the one that's not tied to the streaming and all, I only have 142 on the download speed and 40.62 on the upload speed.
Yeah, you just got better.
Somethings.
Yeah, I don't know what you did.
I'm at 300 on one computer and only 142 when I should be in the thousands, right? Or at least 80%, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
I pay
definitely cleared up
$489 a month for this shit. Yeah. David says speech is on point now, no lag. But yeah, 142.71 on the download on the other computer, the one that I don't stream with. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, somebody says Roger says you fixed it. I don't know what we were doing, right? But let's say that we're working right now, right? So somebody says it's fixed, or perhaps your crystal clear video of a fuzzy Laney looks good now. We're gonna say that we're just gonna kind of move forward. We have to, and I will call Cox out once again. And we'll see what we can do. But Windows Task Manager Performance tab will show you upload and download speeds. Oh, okay. I'll check that out. But also, JR, answer this question for me. On this computer, just recently, my hard drive is nearly full. I've got to take all my files and stuff and dump them into my backups, which I haven't done yet. Does that play a role?
Not when you're doing the internet stuff for the most part.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure because it's redlining, right? My C drive. There's only
you are definitely going to need to do some changing.
Oh yeah, we're switching. I have a terabyte or 6 terabyte drive. I got to back everything up on, and then I got to put it up in the cloud too. I got 100 gigabytes I got to put up there in my cloud spot, but I'll get it all off. But that I didn't know if that would interfere with it. Okay, let's get talking about models because we got a little bit to cover, and let's see what we can do, ladies and gentlemen. All right, guys, I'm gonna bring myself down to the corner here. That's little old me. I'm gonna get on camera too. And I'm going to go large for a minute, but thanks. Hang out with me, and I might talk with you after. What we might see what you can, and I'll pay for advice. Anything, I might just pick your brain on what I should ask the Cox people because I've had them out here twice, and the last time they replaced everything, right? So I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but I should be zooming. I mean, I literally should be cranking out stuff. And they just ran fiber optic outside my front of my house. They just ran fiber optic wires, and so they're transferring some people to fiber optics.
But
I'm already paying for. Yeah, I know. Yeah, but I'm already paying $4.89. I don't know what that's going to be, but it's crazy. But that's cable, phone, and internet. So it's not just internet. Okay, let's get started here. Ladies and gentlemen, in my Aspire software, and again, the things that I'm going to be talking about initially, we're going to be importing a model. This can be done in VCarve Desktop Pro or Aspire. It applies to all three. Okay, and come on, teach before it gets bad again, Gerard says. Thanks, Gerard. Gerard stays on my ass, evidently. He either doesn't like hearing me talk or just he wants to learn one thing and doesn't give a shit about my personal problem. All right, let's see here.
Gerard,
the first thing we're going to talk about is file types, right? So go to Fiber. Yes, I'll call them and find out what the story is with that. There are, when you go to designandmake.com, right, which is the sister company of Vectric, and you purchase models, they'll give you the option of what model file type do you want to download. Do you want to download V3M, STL, PNG for some reason? Don't ask me why, but I don't know why PNG is an option, but it is. First and foremost, if you ever have the opportunity, you want to download the native file V3M, the Vectric 3D model file type. This one reason is it is native to Vectric. It can be added to your clip art gallery, where all your models and clip art are. It can be added to that. Third-party model files can't. But if V3M, if that is an option, that's your option that you want to download when you make a purchase. Secondary, now I'm kind of on the fence, and I'll let Ronnie and JR, they might have some opinion on this too. But secondary, there's STL and OBJ. These are kind of the two most popular out there. There's a lot of different file formats that we can import into Vectric. And to show the different file types, just to kind of give you an idea, we have the STL, we have the 3DM, which is kind of a Rhino 3D model file. We have the SketchUp SKP files, the ArtCam files, the old ArtCam. I can't really say old. I think ArtCam is still out there now, but that's the RLF files, 3DS, ACS, or ASC and PRJ, .x, .dxf, LWO, Lightwave files, WRL, and OBJ, Wavefront, right? Well, of all of those different file types, the most common that you'll see, like when I go to cgtrader.com and I'm purchasing models, I love cgtrader.com, by the way. If you're looking for models, three-dimensional models and stuff, CG Trader is a great site to buy models from and stuff. I really like their models quality and stuff. But you'll see a lot of different model types and everything, because a lot of times those models on CG Trader they're using them for video graphics or video games or 3D prints and things like that. So there's all kinds of file types. But when it comes to the models, carving models and everything, STL and OBJ are kind of your go-to, like on that third-party site, CG Trader. So I like STL before OBJ. So if I had a hierarchy, it would be V3M, STL, OBJ. But it doesn't matter really on the other two, on those two. But I like STL. So that would be my secondary choice. If I'm downloading or buying models and things, the stereolithograph models, STL models, that's going to be my second choice over V3M or under V3M. And also what we're going to do is we're going to import a model file in here, and this model file will be an STL. And this what I'm about to do applies to all three of the software packages. So for this, I'm going to select the model and bring it in. And the very first thing that we have to do when we import a model is we have to orientate that model. Now, real quick, Brooks Martin says OBJ over STL for 3D models and SVGs for vectors, right? Okay, so that's Brooks. That's good to know. Brooks, do me a favor in the chat. Can you give me an explanation on just a brief kind of like why you do that, why that's your choice? Because I would really like to know, because I am a DXF over SVG kind of guy, right? And I'm an SPL over OBJ. Now, my reasonings is just it's for most commonality over quality or anything, but let me know why SVG over DXF if there's a particular reason. Just let me know, because I'm curious, because DXF is kind of my go-to, and then SVG is my second. All right. If you have a reason, I don't know if you have a reason or not, but if you do, let me know, and that would be cool. So when we are orientating, the first thing we have to do is we have to orientate the model to our workspace. Now, here's my tip and everything is the very first thing that we should always do, I think, is we should always come over to the icons in the top right corner and click on the Z icon. This puts us in an overhead view. Okay, like if we were looking down on our board, overhead and everything. So for now, my board is an 8.5 by 11, right? So that's this little red box here is kind of outlined, and the model comes in metric. So most models are designed in metric and millimeter and things because most models are made overseas and stuff. And it comes in metric. So right now, the software thinks it's inches and not millimeters. So it's reading at 349 inches by 276 inches, right? So that's what size it is. Now, of course, we have a button here that will scale millimeter, 2 inches right out the gate. We could click that, or we could just change it to whatever size we need. We can just type in the size we want, right? Now, if I convert the scale from millimeters to inches, then this model actually is, about 13 by 10, right? A little over, 13 3/4 by, 10 7/8, between 10 7/8 and 10 and, 15 16ths. It's about 1 inch thick, right? So so right away, when you have that big model come in, sometimes now, depending on your processor and stuff, Vectric VCarve Desktop Pro or Aspire, it sits there for a minute, right? It's hard to process such a big file and everything. So regardless, just wait it out and everything. But for me, I honestly don't I very rarely click the scale metric to inches. I just go in and type the size of the model that I need, right? I know that my workpiece is 8 by 11. This particular workpiece I have set up here is 8 by 11. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to just make sure that I am, below 11, right? So let's say I come in here and I type in 10. Let's go 9.5. And then I'm going to click apply, right? And I'm going to size it to fit my workpiece. You don't have to click that scale to inches to millimeters to inches and all, but it'll do it right away and get you into the kind of a normal size that you can wrap your head around, right? In here now, sizing my model down, you have to understand when you're scaling the model, X, Y, and Z, model thickness, length, and width are all linked together. So when you change one number, it changes them all. You can unlink or unlock the XYZ ratio, and you can change one or the other, X, Y, or Z, depending on what you need and stuff. I am of the opinion, because we're still in a raw state. We're not imported in right now. we're still in kind of an STL raw state. So when I scale this down, I'm not actually sacrificing a lot of detail. I'm not flattening out a lot of the detail here. When I get into the software, when I finally do the import, if I scale that Z, then I'm going to sacrifice detail. It's going to lose that detail and everything. But I'm kind of the believer that you kind of keep your aspect ratio locked. I don't want to throw off or distort anything. But in some cases, I may need to change my X or Y, but I want to keep my Z as thick as possible, and then I'll deal with that in the software. I don't run across that all that often, but you guys and girls might make, models, or you might be working with models where it's different from you, that you have to have thickness for detail for something that you're doing, right? Let's say that your model is a soap mold, right? Or something like that. And you can't lose any detail because, it has to be brought in at this particular height because this is where the soap is going in and it needs all that detail on the mold. I don't know, right? I don't know what the situation would call for. But I'm of the belief that you keep your XYZ locked, get your model to size, and then import it in. Now, after the size is changed, I always center the model. Now, when we center the model now, I'm going to turn this up on its side. This centers the model. So there's what's called a zero plane. With the zero plane, we have basically it's kind of like the dividing line. So if I was doing a two-sided job, which we will be importing later, I'm going to want this model split centered on that zero plane, right? I'm going to want it split for the most part. And there might be some slight adjustment, but I want it, half and half. So I'm carving one half of the model on one side, flipping it over, carving the other half on there. And when it's all said and done, I end up with this full piece. But when it comes to a single-sided model, and that's the case of this, I need the model above the zero plane. I need the zero plane at the bottom of the model. So coming back to here, when I center the model, it shoves it back into the center of the board. So not only does it center it like up and down, left and right, but it also centers it in the material area. At that point, when I click on the position and import, if I turn it now to its side here, you're going to see there's a black line coming across the area, kind of in the side view. And this is the modeling plane. I called it the zero plane, but it's the modeling plane. And the modeling plane on a single-sided model should be on the back side of the model. Now, keep this in mind. We have a slide bar that always slides down. Basically, we're sliding the model plane, not the model. We're sliding the model plane down to the bottom of the model. Everybody, I used to have people ask me, why am I, when I slide this down, how come my model goes up, right? Because we're not moving the model, we're moving the modeling plane with that sliding bar. Now, here's the thing that about the modeling plane and doing it now versus later. Some models come in with the creators that create the models and all, they put a lot of base meat on the back side of the model. And they make, these models come in at 3 inches thick and things like that. And I know that if I have to reduce my model down, even to fit it into an 1.5 inch board or something, I'm going to sacrifice and lose detail. But if I look at my model and there's over 1 inch of base meat, the meat on the back side of it that can actually be removed from the model, and it's not going to affect the detail of the model, the shape or anything like that, then I'm going to slide that plane, and I'm going to take that meat, whatever I need, it's going to be below the zero plane, because I'm going to have the discard data below zero plane checked when I import this. I mean, it's going to get rid of all that excess wood. I call it meat, but all that excess wood, and things. Now, some models, like if I were to, cut the back side of this model off, there is no meat back there, there's no room for me to trim the fat, if you will. Right. So I'm going to make sure that I'm all the way on top here. I still keep by default, I still keep the discard data below the zero plane checked. Just kind of, it's just default. I don't change it or anything. And then when we click on import, it will bring it in. Now let's pause there for just a second. And Brooks Martin followed up with my question from him. STL is his preference. Good. OBJ will import. Okay. If that's the only option, good. And then Kool-Aid says, would you want CRV 3D? What's the difference? Now, here's the thing. CRV 3D is not a model type. That is an Aspire file. So for those that have VCarve, Desktop, or Pro, your design file, when you save your design, it creates a .crv. That's its designation. A .carve file. Vectric Aspire. Hey, Charlie, we'll get you on stage here in just a second. How you doing? Welcome, Charlie. I just wanted to pop up and say hi to you. I'm going to go back for just a minute.
That's okay.
But Vectric Aspire file, when you save your design, the designation is CRV 3D, right? So that's the file extension for a Vectric Aspire file. So Kool-Aid, the CRV 3D, if I have VCarve Desktop or Pro, I can't import or open a CRV 3D because that's an Aspire file, a design file. It's not a model or anything like that. It's just the designation for the design file. But in Aspire, I can open a CRV 3D, which is its native designated file type, and a CRV. I just can't do it the other way around. In Desktop or Pro, I can't open a CRV 3D. I can't open an Aspire file and everything. Now, let's see here. Give me just a minute. Gerard, thanks, buddy. I was just giving you a hard time. Gerard says, I'm on your side, buddy. I appreciate that, man. I know you are. You know, you're supporting me, you know, by being a member. I appreciate that. I just teasing because you keep me on my toes, Gerard. You keep me on my toes. All right. So when we import this model, right, now we're in, once we get that zero plane below the model and we click on import, we're in our design work area, right? We're no longer in that raw format and everything. So anything I do from this point, if I reduce the size of the Z, we're now going to kind of lose some of our detail and stuff like that. But depending on how much detail is in the model to begin with, determines, like, if I'm going from a 1 inch thick model to 3/4, I'm probably not going to lose a lot of detail. But if I'm going from a 3 inch thick model down to 3/4, I'm probably going to lose some detail, right? So, you know, I'm going to, and we're going to talk about other model types like 3D print type models and what's called embossing, how we would import those or how we would have to import those. But when it comes to importing a STL, OBJ, or any of those other 8 file types, the orientation, let's come in here and undo that import real quick, and let's go back and re-import it. Depending on the creator, right, the model creator, whoever made the model, and their workspace on their computer or their system or you know, whatever they use. Now, these models could come in sideways, upside down, backwards, whatever the case may be. And that's why the initial orientation is there. That's why it's important for us. They, you know, depending on what it is, you know, that model could come up, you know, backwards and all that thing. So we can look at the import window. We have the first section, the top section is the initial orientation. Left, right, top, bottom, front, back kind of thing, right? And what that is depending on how the creator created the model. So right now, in this orientation top, this view, this is the view I want. This, for me, for this particular model, is considered the top, right? But let's say that the creator had created the model to where the they had the model orientated where all of this back here, it was upside down in their workspace, and they didn't care where they were in their 3D space when they were creating the model. They're just building models and putting them up for sale and all that stuff. And for them, it might look upright, right? The front. But for us, when we import it, it could come into the backside like this, and we got to, it needs to know, okay, what are we doing? So when we choose our initial option, that's what we're doing. We're just trying to get it. And what we want is we want to be in that Z view, and we want to be looking at the model from the top down, like if we're looking down at our table into the board, right? Now, the rotation around the Z axis, some models could come in sideways, and everything. And basically, let's say that the model is turned left to right, and I need it orientated along, I need it upright along my y-axis. I might need it sideways like it is along my x, right? Depending on the situation and depending on my designing. I typically always will bring in the model upright, right side up. And once I get it into the actual program, Desktop Pro or Aspire, then I'll orientate it to fit on my material after, unless I'm, had things that I needed to do. Like I like to design upright, put my text in if I'm adding VCarve or whatever, to it, like if it's a plaque kind of thing. And then I'll rotate everything if I have to carve along my X or my Y, depending on what it is. But this rotation is just basically, rotating it, right? It might come in upside down. It could, it depends on what we have, right? So that's what that is. When we are importing a 4th axis model, a rotary axis, there's also an interactive where we can interact on the screen. And let me show you this. Let me see if I can kind of get it off the model off the screen. I'm going to zoom out real quick. But this globe right here. So if I tilt the screen a little bit so we can look at it in a 3D view, it's not going to, I can't zoom in. I can't make that bigger so you can see the sphere, if you will. But this sphere represents X, Y, and Z rotation. Think of it like a steering wheel, right? We're turning the steering wheel depending on what we're doing. And when I'm here, depending on the orientation, my red line is actually a circle in the 3D view. And I can grab it and turn it, and I'm tilting this, right? Like if I need some kind of tilt or something on this model. On this model, I don't. But the green axis, that's our X. We can, if we have to turn this a certain way. Now, this is going to play a role in the next model that we import, which is going to be a 3D print model that we're going to turn from a 3D print model into a model that we can carve on our CNC. So when we emboss this model, we're going to do some orientation to get it to look right and everything. So we're going to be doing this interactive rotation here. And so, I have that rotation. And then the blue ring is the Z rotation, right? So kind of rotating along that and everything. Now, the when it comes to this, let me get back to reality. Stand by. I have not mastered myself the rotation and everything. I haven't mastered myself yet on reorientating everything after I spin it around. So there's real quick, while I have it on my mind. A couple weeks ago, we were having a big discussion about the new V12 that's coming out. the OEMs had a meeting today with Vectric and everything, and kind of got a little sneak peek of some of the changes. I can't talk about them right now. We'll be able to talk about them shortly, but it's not as scary as I thought. When I said, oh God, I hope it's no major changes and everything, they just cleaned up the interface. It's beautiful. It looks great. Nothing's, it's not like too crazy or anything like that. It's just very clean. And the new features are awesome. The V12 and everything. And we're going to be able to talk about it in the future. I just can't, we're under strict rules to keep things under our hat until the release gets closer and they tell us it's okay to talk more about it. But I kind of fear mongered it a little bit, like, oh my God, I hope it's something not crazy. When I see the words, use, completely new interface and all, it freaks me out a little bit, right? I was totally worried for no reason. It's amazing. And for those that purchase their software within the last 12 months, they actually get version 12 for free. Anyone older than 12 months has to pay the little fee to move up to it and everything. But so I'm looking forward to that coming out shortly, because when it comes to working with 3D models, the new interface and everything it's cool. It's cool. So you guys keep that in mind, and we'll talk about that in the future. All right, let's get back to where we are here. So you have your interactive rotation here, and you have your initial orientation here. So this is fixed, right? So right, back, left, front, bottom, top kind of thing. This is that side to side rotation, depending on, what you need. And then your center here with the 3 orbits, blue, green, and red, that's your interactive rotation in the software. All right, I'm going to import this, get this down to my size again. And it was 9.5. Click apply. Drop this down and click import. Okay, so that we have to do with every third-party model. V3M, we would save that model file in our clip art folder, and it's a drag and drop kind of thing, or a double click, to drop in. So from your clip art, all of those V3M models, you're able to save them in your clip art folders, depending on if it's a design and make folder, or a custom model you bought from design and make or something. If it's V3M, you can just double click on it to bring it in, or you can drag and drop it in, right? Kind of thing. And so that's why V3M is kind of like your first, for me, it's kind of the first choice because it's native to the program. All right, let me go back and get rid of the bear. Okay, so if y'all have any questions on the initial import, let me know. Okay. Let me know on the initial import. And then go ahead.
When just before you import it, there was something about the Z down on the bottom of the dialog box.
Just before. Oh, yep. Let's back up here. Hold on a second. Delete. Re-import. Top view, switch to here, go to 9.5. Let's switch over. I told you guys to stay on the top there. Apply center model. All right, apply perspective along the Z. And so what this is, the Z, right? So any change in everything that we make, it's let me see if I can turn this. I'm going to try to turn it to the side a little bit so you can see what happens here. You'll see it mostly in his head and stuff. So the detail, the perspective, when you're looking at the Z-axis and everything, depending on, and let me do that slowly so you can see the difference. Let's go all the way up to 100%, right? So you see how that distortion is, right? It's applying the perspective on the z-axis. And so the how they word that, and we want, we typically want to not do that. We want it on none, unless it's kind of one of those 3D models that we're embossing and stuff. Then this is where this comes into play. But it let me see if I can go. Let me see what view is going to be best to show you. Can y'all see? Yeah, y'all can see that. All right. When I'm applying perspective on the z-axis, I am kind of bringing the I'm bringing the model. I don't know if y'all can see me doing what I'm doing out in my chair, but I'm bringing the model out, so it's kind of like, pulling all that detail and pulling things back. And how the best way, let's see how they describe it in their terminology, right? So let's come over here, and in the manual, they here they say checking this will enable you to apply a perspective distortion to a model along the z-axis by using the slider. Points on the model closest to the observer, so like the high points, the chest and things like that, will become further apart as the distortion strength is increased, right? So the perspective, it kind of pulls it out further apart. This makes the model appear as if it's coming out of the screen, right? So it kind of, has that perspective. Very rarely would you ever need that, except for, like I said, we're gonna, there may be a reason to utilize it when we are when we're doing our embossing and everything. But it just gives it that perspective. Let's close out of this and let's go back to kind of a full view here.
Sort of like,
and it just it basically not like a tilt and fade. So basically what it's doing is it's just kind of a like if you watch kind of the center here. Let me see. I'm going to try to get it to where you can see the whole thing. I'm going to watch the center versus the top and the bottom here, and also the wings. But as I pull this over, let's go 100. It's, making it look like it's coming out of the screen, right? Kind of deal. It's pulling that back. Now, if I left that at 100 and I imported this model like that, right? Let's slide this down. And import. Now my model, okay. Now my model kind of has this bulge to it, if you will, kind of like, like it's there, kind of thing. And for me, it's not that appealing. So this time I want you guys and girls to focus on the head, right? That head. I'm going to delete this again. Kind of get that visual in your head, what that head looked like. I'm going to re-import it. No distortion. So this, that, 9.5, rinse and repeat. No distortion here. Center, oops. Always click apply. 9.5, apply. Center model. Slide this down and import. Now the head, instead of, being kind of like this and everything, the head looks more normal, like everything is just normal. Not I get scared like it saw something, or what have you. But that's the only way. It just gives it that, all it does is it just pulls it out and kind of pushes everything back, keeping the parts of the model that's closest to the observer U, it just makes it look like it's kind of like out there. And on some models, it might have a purpose. I've never found that purpose, but
so basically it's keeping the back of it flat as opposed to.
It keeps it flat. Yeah. Oh, it keeps it. Yeah. The back is flat. The back it keeps it flat. Okay. All it's doing is it's taking and kind of all the stuff on the further points and everything. It's kind of pushing them back and bringing out the points that are closer to the operator, right? So it just pulls it out, so it just has that that bulge is going to be kind of, you're going to mostly see it in all the areas that would be the highest parts of the model, the highest points of the model, which they call it the highest points of the observer, but it's just the highest points of the model. So in his shoulders are high, and in the shield, that's kind of the high, you know, the center point is just kind of like pulling it out.
Got it.
You know, I don't know. Unfortunately, I don't have an example of like, this is why you would use this, or this is why you wouldn't use it. It's one of those things that's never been used on my end of things. All right. So when it comes to importing a model, Lainey, can you re-import rather than starting over? Yes, you can re-import. Yep. No need to start over or anything like that. You just delete the model, re-import it if you need to. Now, once the model's imported, right, then it comes down to, you know, sizing it, laying, you know, positioning it on your material on how it's going to be, and then, creating your 3D rough and 3D finish tool paths and everything, just, normal procedures and all. The import, for some reason, most of my newer customers and stuff, that's when they're crawl before you run kind of thing, and they're just getting into 3D model. The import is where most of the questions are. Okay, what does this do, and what does that do, and that kind of thing. Now, let's import a little bit of a different type of model. So let's delete the eagle. And for this model, I am going to change my board size, because I know this model has kind of like a little bit of a roundish to its base. And I'm just going to go 12 by 12. And I'm going to click OK. Now this model is a model that would typically be used as a 3D print. Meaning it's big, right? It's tall and stuff and everything. And this model, when it orientates, when it comes in, it has a orientation. When I look at it in the Z, it's kind of, we're looking at it like it's sitting on a table, right? So when I'm in my Z perspective, meaning I'm looking at it top down, it's sitting here in this particular model. It's sitting here like it's sitting on a table. And I'll orbit around just so you can kind of see the detail and everything. Right now, on this particular model, I want to carve this as a 2.5D, if you will, not a 3D. It's going to be a 3D model, but I want to carve it 2.5D. I want it to be flat on the back, but I want to be able to have that kind of look like it's a carving and everything. So I need to do what's called embossing. I need to bring this model down to a thickness that I can work with. And so, but first, before any of that, I need to orientate it in a way that it looks good to me. So not only am I going to change the size to fit on my material, so let's do that now. I'm just going to go 10 by 10. Well, let's do it with this. 10 by 8. And I'm going to center the model into my work area. Now I'm going to be using the interactive rotation, because I want to turn and position this So I have a pretty cool looking model, and I'm going to get the detail. Now you have to imagine this. This is where your imagination has to work. When we turn it, you're kind of orientating it perspective, right? You're orientating on this perspective. So like you're looking at it like a carving. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do is, if I try to tilt it to the right, that's not the view that I want. If I go to the back, that is kind of what I want, but I need to spin it around. So we'll do some orientation. Let's see the left. Okay. Bottom. Nope. Front. Right. Okay. So what I want is I want this orientation, but now I'm going to use my interactive rotation here, and I want to pull this down. Okay. And I'll get it centered back in the model in just a minute. And I want it turned to the side. What I want is, let me get that centered again. I want kind of a look where I can see the detail here, the skulls, and the raven, right? So I'm going to keep turning this up. Now, using your orbit and just orbiting your board around isn't, the same thing. Okay. So the orbit here, that's what we're dealing with. So let's go. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to imagine this getting flattened into a carving, right? What do we want to see in this carving? So I'd like to see the raven's head and then, some of the skulls, so I want to kind of come down, let's say like this. Let's get that centered again. Let me see if let me tilt it just a little bit more. I just told you not to use your out here. We got to use our orbit. Tilt. Okay. Now, when I bring this in, when I position this, now if I use the perspective on the Z, let me see here. If I uncheck this and I come in on this, it takes that crow, which is the closest point to the observer, and brings it out, and everything else kind of separates from it, right? So I definitely don't want to apply perspective to that. I don't even know if a little perspective kind of brings the crow out versus, yeah, I'll leave that off. I haven't found a good reason to use it yet. All right, so we're going to position and import this. And again, we're going to treat this as a single-sided model. So we want to slide the slide bar all the way down. And then we're going to click on import. Now, here's the thing. Anything that's like all this empty space under the crow's wings, its beak and everything like that, Vectric has to fill it with material, right? It's got to have material. So when this thing comes in, it's going to come in looking weird. All right. So when it comes in, and let me turn this around so you can see, all of that airspace that was under the model has been filled with base meat. Under the crow's head, which was kind of just in midair, it had to fill in with base meat. And under the wings and everything, so all of this stuff was filled in with base meat, right? And this is where embossing comes in. Now, unfortunately, this type of model and embossing and everything, that is an Aspire feature. So for those of you that have, desktop and pro, won't be able to do the embossing. But this is what you would see if you tried to import kind of a 3D print like that Hulk that Brooks Martin was, asking me about earlier. It would, kind of be brought in like this. It would fill in with this meat. And so even trying to slice this type of model, like if someone asks, hey, can you slice this? Even if I brought it in that statue form, all the places underneath where the beak and anywhere there was air, right? Any voids and all, Vectric is going to fill it in. So slicing would not have been an option either. But here's what we do. So this is what my model is going to look like. And I can add to it or take away from it or what have you. But first things first, I need to, when I carve, this is what it's going to look like. But when I turn it to the side, it looks crazy weird, right? But so let's get it in the top view. And on trimming and stuff, I might remove some of this base. That's where we can remove parts of the model and stuff. You'll see that in a minute. But here's the tool right here. It's the last tool on the third row down of the icons, and it says it's the embossing tool, but it says reduce the height of a component whilst retaining the surface detail, right? So if I just click this button right now, it's going to bring everything flat, but then it's going to be real spiky and all. So I'm going to show you, we're going to undo what I'm about to do because there's another step we do before that. But I'm going to go ahead and click this button. Let's turn this up so you can kind of see what happens here. When I click this button, it's going to reduce this model down into a flat perspective, but all the detail, it's going to try to keep all the detail. Wait for it. And so now we have that flat 2.5D model, but it has this crazy detail. It tried to keep as much as the detail as possible as it shrank this thing down. And it is rough to say the least. There's all kinds of these spikes and everything, right? It doesn't look good at all. So we wouldn't just do that, right? There's another step that we do before. So I want to cancel this. I want to go back to my original state. Okay. And here is the steps. Okay. We import this model in like this. That was step number 1. Step number 2, we come over to the component tree and we duplicate the model. Right click, duplicate. We have 2. Wait for it. Okay, now, doesn't matter which one. I always work with the bottom one because it's going to be the base. But for here, the bottom one, we're going to turn off the top one, uncheck it. And the bottom one, we are going to create some thickness for our model. So we're going to just reduce the Z height down to the size of what we need for our thickness to be for our material that we're carving out of and everything. And if you remember from last week, we talked about the combine mode. And if you remember me describing the add combine mode was like taking a sheet and draping it over the car, and it takes on the shape. Well, the base, the second one of our duplicate, the bottom one, this is just going to be the car. The top one that we emboss with all those fibers and everything, that's going to be the sheet that gets draped over the car. So on this one, I want to just set a height, and I'm carving, my material thickness is 1.5 inches. And let's just say I want to make my model 1 inch thick. So I'm going to go 1 inch, and I'm going to click OK. Now this is going to flatten this model down with all the detail and everything. It's going to flatten it down. So I'm going to lose all the detail. Okay. So now when we look at this, my model is 1 inch thick. Let me look at it from the side here. Okay. I now have a 1 inch thick model base, but no detail, right? So when this carves and everything, there's no detail. Now let's, just for kicks and giggles, let's go 3/4, right? Imagine if I was carving this on a 3/4 board, 0.75. Okay. All right. So I have a, a model base that's 3/4 of an inch that has no detail to it. The skull detail's gone. Even the little gravel, platen, the crow's feathers, eyes, beak, all that's gone. So, but it's meant to be. It's just a base. Now we click OK here. And we turn the base off. So this is the next step. So we set that base to whatever thickness we need to fit on our material kind of thing. So that comes off. We turn on the top model. And this one we emboss. Okay. Bear with me just a second. This one we emboss. Now, when we emboss it, it's going to bring it down with all that funkiness into it and everything that you saw a few minutes ago. And we have to apply here in this state, we have to apply some smoothing to this, right? So here in our tool, it says scale height, and then it says detail smooth. Now, the scale height by default is right at 10%. Believe it or not, we actually want to bring it down to 1%. So we want to come in here because if on this scale height, right, this is, if I bring it up, this is just all that it's trying to retain all that detail. So it's just getting worse and worse, right? See all those spikes and everything. We need that. We need the detail, but we can't have it that high, right? So we need to always bring it. It's literally, you're always going to bring it to 1%. And that's going to give you let's get back into kind of this top view here. That's going to give you the best, cleanest detail of your model, but it's real thin. It's paper thin, right? But that's going to give us all of our detail here. And then here, my pro tip is don't do all your smoothing here. Apply a little bit of smoothing. I would say no more than, 10% here. Don't go over 10% here, because once the two models are put together and you get things, laid out to whatever you're carving, then you can apply smoothing later after the fact, after everything is put together. Don't do it all right here in the emboss tool. It's not the time and the place. Apply a little bit of smoothing, but not a lot. So we want to keep it under 10%. So I'm going to come in and I'm just going to go at 5%. And what that's going to do is it's just going to, and we'll go a little bit more just so you can see. Let's go 10%. I want you to be able to see. I don't know how well it translates on the camera, but all we're doing, let me see if I can zoom in. All we're doing, let me turn that smoothing back off. On the edges, okay, we're just smoothing out those edges a little bit. So if we kind of focus our attention, on this, I'm going to come in at 5%. Watch in here. Okay. If I go 10%. Okay. All we're doing is just slightly smoothing it out. No more than 10% here in this window. We'll do more later. Now we click OK. Now here's where kind of the magic happens. Let me turn it on its side here. This is just a flat sheet, right? Now we're about to drape this sheet over the base that we just made earlier. And now we're going to have thickness and detail, the two things that we need. So here we will turn on that base, making sure that both are set to a combined mode of add. And so now we have our thickness that we need with our detail, right? So now we have that thick model with the detail and everything. Let me, all right. So Brooke Martin said that Michael Mezelik, which also teaches the Vectric software, he says he calls that applying skin to the model. Right, exactly. Applying the skin to the model. So that's what we're doing. We're literally, skinwalkers. We're applying it to that base. So that gives us our detail and our thickness. So the thickness is the base, and the detail was that embossed model reduced down and draping over. So now it's laying over with everything. So now I have a pretty cool model. Now at this point, let's say that this is what I'm carving, right? I'm not adding anything to it or anything, to that. I could come in here and let's say I wanted to add a plaque to it or take something away from it, whatever the situation we call for. I'm going to just go into this and I'll add a rectangle here. I'll go into the shape tool and I'll split the view so I can see what I'm doing here. But on that, it'll be a flat shape. I'll give it a height of 0.625. And I want to merge it in. That might be a little too high on this back side here. We'll see what we get, and I'll click apply. Might be too high. It might be too high on the back side. Yep, way too high. Let's go 0.375. Click apply. Kind of want, what does 0.5 do for me? Trying to see if I need to do any trimming or anything like that. Yeah, so let's see what 2.5 does for me. I don't really need this whole platter, the base of what the model was and everything. I kind of want it to have kind of a look like it's coming out and stuff.
3/16.
You want to go 3/16? Okay. 1.875. I was actually going to go back up to 3/8 and cover up more of that. Let's go 3/16 and see. Now 3/16 will probably bring out more of the platter on the back. Yep. And so it gives that. So 3/16 actually does well because it gives that wraparound look. Right. So good. That was a good call on that. It gives that wraparound right under the tail, and it brings it just where it's right over that base there. So good call on that. That was JR, wasn't it? Yep. Cool. Awesome, man. All right. And so that would be the model. And then let's close that. Go back into the full 3D here. Now, at this point, I'm going to apply a little bit more smoothing. Not a whole lot. I want to kind of keep some of the detail, but I can now apply some smoothing. But here's the deal. I like keeping the originals intact. Okay. And by the way, I want to bring this down. I like bringing the originals intact, or keeping the originals intact. And bear with me a second. Maybe I need to stay up there. Yep. Okay. Sorry about that. I don't like baking my originals in case I have to go back and change something. So here, if I just go straight into the apply smoothing, it's going to, is it going to, hold on a second. Is it going to ask me to bake the model or not? No, it didn't ask me. So that's great. Draft asked me to bake, and there's some other reasons, and I don't want that much smoothing. But let's let that. Let that regenerate real quick. Okay, let's. All right, wonderful. Let's go and get rid of that. And let's do that again, this time a little bit more. So bear with me a second. I always want to preserve the transparency. I don't want to adding any more material. Preserving the transparency means it'll smooth everything, but it won't add any additional material and everything. So always want to have that checked. I always do. I don't want to adding any additional material during the smoothing process. I want my open areas to remain open and things like that. I'm going to come in. Okay, I'm happy with that. Yeah. All right. So now the smoothed model, it created a new model. So therefore, I can come in, should be able to come in and turn off my originals. And it didn't have me bake them. So that's good. Drafting requires baking, and other tools, I forget what it is. There's some others that require baking, but this didn't. So that's great. It kept those intact. If it says this must be baked before you do this or that, then that's fine, but make a duplicate and create a different level. Put the duplicate models in the different level, and then bake those together to do whatever action it is you need done. Don't bake your originals in case you need to go back and change something, depth, perspective, whatever, they're there, right? All right, so this is my finished model here. And now, that's my carvable 2.5D model. And for those of you that are new to 3D modeling altogether, let me give you a layman's explanation of 2D, 2.5D, and 3D. Okay. 2D, your Z-axis on your CNC when it's carving, it does not move up and down. Now, of course, if I'm carving through a 3/4 inch piece of material, cutting out parts, I'm taking passes, 1/8 inch pass, another 1/8, and everything. But when it gets to that pass, it remains at that depth through the entire carve. And it moves to the next pass and remains at that depth through the entire carve. It does not move up and down while it's carving. That is a 2-dimensional cut. Okay, so when your Z doesn't move during the cut, that is a 2-dimensional cut. Now, that doesn't include the passes. I'm talking about during just the motion of the carve. 2.5D and 3D are the same. The Z moves when it's carving. So there's X, Y, and Z movement. to carve that detail. So that's technically a 3-dimensional cut, right? But 2D, it's flat, and the extents, the edges, do not wrap around 3-dimensionally. So you and I, as human beings, our bodies, we are 3-dimensional. This mouse is 3-dimensional, right? The extents wrap around themselves. On a 2.5D, my board is flat. My plaque, whatever I'm carving, it doesn't wrap on itself, so it's a 2.5D. That's where you hear the term 2.5D. And then 3D is full. You're 360 degrees. You're carving the full aspect of 360. But the 2.5D and 3D, they're technically, you'll hear them called as 3D models, but that just means your Z is moving up down. So now, something that you might not consider. A VCarve toolpath is a 3D cut. Your Z is cutting, moving up and down to the carve. So the VCarve toolpath falls into the 3D category, believe it or not. It is a 3-dimensional cut. You have X and Y and depth. There's depth. It's not raised depth. It's not extruded up. It's extruded down. It's carved down. You have depth and detail and everything. So interesting fact. All right. Y'all probably already knew that, but there you go. Now, there's also a thing, I'm not even going to get into it, but, there's 4D and all that stuff and blah, blah, but we don't get into that. Now, and I don't know anything about it. So, so embossing a model, right? That is the second type of model that you may have to import. Those 3-dimensional models that like let's say the Statue of Liberty or the Empire State Building or anything like that, that you want to carve that in kind of a flat 2.5D orientation, but it comes, somebody has modeled it to be 3D printed. You can still work with that model and you can emboss it in to get that detail. You can change the perspective. So you're looking at it, you can orientate it to look at it right. And then when it flattens down, you get this kind of look here, right? So pretty cool stuff. I like doing this with, there's certain cars and trucks and stuff, models, 3D models and stuff that, where embossing and bringing it in like that comes in handy. All right. Now, the third type of model that we might import would be a 2-sided model. So let's go ahead and I'm going to save this, save as, because I actually might want to carve that one day, but also I want to save it in case y'all have questions that I can refer back to on. So I'm going to go Crow and Skulls. Raven and Skulls, Crow and Skulls. Says it's the same. Okay. So we'll save that. And then we will open a new window. On this one, I will go 11 this direction and 8 on this direction. And 1.5 inches. That's going to be too fat. We'll leave it at 1.5. All right, so we'll bring that in. Okay, so let me go in, and on this one, I'll close it so I'm not taxing my already handicapped computer. All right, so now we're going to import a model, and the next model is going to be, hopefully nobody has anything against guns or whatever, but it's going to be this 911, this Colt 911 model. So it's going to be it's going to be carved out completely. Now, if I wanted to carve it as a flat model, I could still cut it in half and cut half of it off, but I'm going to bring it in as a full 3-dimensional model. So once again, we're going to get in a zero plane here, and I'm going to center the model, and I'm going to rotate it this way and work with it. I got to find my right and my left and my, there we go. All right. And what side do I want to be the top side? Let's go. That's fine. It doesn't matter either way. All right. Now, this one I am going to center the model. And we're going to go into position and import. I'm going to turn this on its side here. Okay. And here's that modeling plane, that black line, right? So I have this split here. And because on one side of my board, I'm going to carve one half of the model, and then that board's going to get flipped over and we're going to carve the other half. Now, the one thing that's not set up here is the job's not set up as a two-sided job. So I'm going to hit cancel for a moment. I'm going to go back to my job setup, and I need to set this up as a two-sided job. I'm going to be referencing off the machine. The modeling surface will be fine. And I am going to flip along my y-axis. No, okay. All right, once again, let's do that one more time. Let's import. Center. Position and import. And like I said, I want to bring this in. Now, here, I want to create both sides, right? Now, when I check off to create both sides, it gives me what's called a overcut distance. And if I choose to have an overcut distance, that's what creates what's called limit planes. So what that is my router, when I have side 1 and side 2 here, if I have no overcut distance, it treats side 1 model this half. Think of it like slicing it right in half, and one half goes on the top side, one half goes on the bottom side, right? I can't see through or cut beyond, you know, that top half and everything to the, you know, to any detail on the model on the other side. If I have parts that when that router bit is coming down and cuts, if there's parts that it needs to get to, and there's none in this one, but if there is parts that that router bit needs to get to that's beyond my center line, then I have to create what's called an overcut distance. So if I had an overcut distance, let's say of 1/8 of an inch and everything, when I import this model, there would be a limit plane that that is at that 1/8 of an inch down on both sides. So when I flip it over, there'd be another limit plane that's 1/8 of an inch down from that side, and it allows the bit to basically, it kind of that becomes the new midpoint, if you will. Allows the bit to be able to get down to there. We can see it from when we're on side 1 in the computer screen. We can see those things that were typically would be side 2. When we're on side 2, we can see those areas that would typically be side 1 that we wouldn't be able to see normally. In this case, there is no overcut distance. But if you want to learn more about the overcut distance, a really good tutorial that explains it very well is the Marlin tutorial, and it's in your help menu under Video Tutorial Browser. in the video tutorial browser, go down to the show all categories and come down to the 3D import. Where's it at? Bear with me just a second. Give me just a moment now. Categories. 3D modeling. There we go. And nope, it's not 3D modeling. Is it 3D toolpaths? No, hold on a second now. What are you doing to me, guys? 3D assembly? No. Where the heck is my Marlin? 2.5D toolpaths. Uh-oh. They didn't take it out. I know they didn't take it out. Give me just a moment, ladies and gentlemen. Categories. 2.5D toolpaths. 3D assembly. Two-sided machining. I'm an idiot. That's what we're talking about. Two-sided. The two-sided Marlin is an excellent example of overcut distances and limit planes, because the Marlin's head kind of tilts in and the sword it travels downward, so it's kind of going through to the side too. But we have to be able, the bit has to be able to come down and carve this side of that sword to get the detail on this side. So it has to be able to go past the center line to the limit plane. And they do a very good job of explaining that overcut distance in this video. And it's basically, all it does is it allows the bit to go past the center line to cut the detail on side 2, technically. But in this one, there's no overcut distance, so we're going to import. Create both sides. Now, when we come in here, we have, if I wanted to just carve this like a plaque or something, like a retirement plaque or something, I could. And it could just be that, you know, kind of half model, if you will. But in this case, I want to turn off the limit plane, and I want to turn on the 2D view. Toggle between single-sided and two-sided. One of these sides has a why is a zero plane there? This, ladies and gentlemen, by the way, is a zero plane right here, but it's not showing in my component. Let me switch over to the other side. Let me see if the other side has the limit plane still checked. It does. Let's turn those off. And that should, there we go. That should get rid of that. So now I can visually see through, right? And if there was a part of this that I needed to be able, I needed that bit to be able to carve through, right? That limit plane that was just turned on would have been down a little bit deeper so I could get to them from one side. But this is the 3D model. And in the 2D view, this is side 2, and flip it over, this is side 1. I'm create an outline around the component, create my vectors. And on this 3D rough cut, I don't need to carve away this, this material here and all. In my material setup, I need to make sure that my model is centered, right? So here, I want my model to be centered in the material, because my model is only, I forget exactly how thick it is, but my material is 1.5 inches thick. There's meat that has to get removed. So I want to mill off the waste meat on the top of one side down to the model. When I flip it over, I want to mill off the waste meat down to the other side. So that way the model's in the middle. When I get to that and I carve that part out, I have a model. I don't have like two hamburger buns with a piece of wood meat in the middle, right? I want the model to be together, and I want the waste on the outsides to get milled away. So we want to be centered here when we position the model over here on the right. And let me see if I can help y'all out. I forgot to do this earlier. But over here on the right is where we're at. So center that. Once we have that position, then the 3D rough cut, 1/4 inch end mill should get me what I need for the rough. I'm going to use the selected vector as the boundary. I don't need to mill out any waste here. 40 thousandths of an inch of detail is fine. Z level raster. I just want to step down. I'm going to hog away the waste material. Now, let me just say this, and somebody here that may be smarter than me might have a reason why they would prefer one or the other. But I'm a very big advocate of always doing a Z level raster and never doing a 3D raster. For me, a 3D raster, you're doing in your rough cut, you're doing the full 3D model detail kind of cut with your roughing bit. Now, this roughing bit doesn't have to be a 1/4 inch end mill. It could be a ball nose bit too, right? But regardless, there's a possibility in the roughing stage that if you do a 3D raster, number one, you're doing the full 3D model cut with your rough bit, and it's doubling. I don't know the exact number, but it's doubling your runtime, right? All we're trying to do is remove the waste material. Step down and remove the waste material. The ball nose bit on the finish cut can do all the detail work. In my opinion, there's no need to do a 3D carve with your roughing bit. One, I have yet to see. I always have customers that have done that, and during their roughing procedure, doing a 3D raster, one, their carvings are long and all, but all they're like, "Hey, Laney, part of this is missing. It's carving air. It's doing this and all that." During the finish cut and stuff, and their 3D raster had chipped away or removed material that shouldn't have been removed. Because it's trying to do the 3D detail with a roughing bit. I think it's ridiculous that it's even an option. But somebody might have a reason why, this is why I use it and it works fine and blah, blah, blah. But you're just doing a 3D cut twice. And you can cut your time in half by doing a C-level raster. Because all we're trying to do is just hog away the waste material. So in this, I'm going to do a Z-level raster, and it's going to remove the material, step down, remove the material as it needs to for this. So if we come in here and we preview the toolpath, hopefully I got it set quickly here and everything. It's just going to go through and hog away the waste area that needs to be hogged away. Okay. Now we're going to do and by the way, ungroup this vector and turn off the this inside vector here, this inside vector on the trigger area. Only the outside perimeter needs to be selected. So let me go back in there and reselect just that outside, because I want it during the rough cut, I want it to hog away that post that was left in the trigger area, right? I want it to go in and hog that away. Okay. So that is going to be my rough cut. Now the 3D finish cut, sometimes using a larger bit, let's say an 1/8 inch being your go-to, ball nose bit, that's going to be too big for the detail on this particular model. So I could do an 1/8 inch bit to do all the major work, and then I could bring in a smaller bit to do the detail work. And sometimes that works out great, and it doesn't add anything extreme to my runtime. And actually, but sometimes it does add a lot to your runtime, and it would have been quicker just to run the one bit of the small detail size that you needed, right? We're gonna look at it both ways. So I'm gonna have my 16th inch bit here is going to be my secondary bit, and I'm gonna just choose, just for example purposes, I'm gonna choose an 1/8 inch tapered ball nose. That'll be my primary. I'm gonna use the selected vector as the boundary, and I'm going to do a raster cut. I like to cut with the grain along the, it's going to go raster along 0. Less sanding for me to do. And I'm going to calculate this toolpath. Now my 1/8 inch bit is going to do the entire model up to where it can fit. And then my 16th inch should come back and only do the detail work, the rest machining it's referred to as. And the one great thing about the software, for those of you that, I don't know when rest machining was finally included in the finishing toolpath. I don't know if it was 10.5 or 11 or even 10. But before, I think it was 9.5 and 10 that didn't have rest machining. There were some extra steps hoops you had to jump through to get that, to be able to use the second bit to just do the detail work. And then they finally wised up in one of their updates. They put rest machining in the toolpath so we can choose multiple bits for the finish, and it was a game changer. So here, my 1/8 inch bit is going to do the entire 3D finish carve, and then my 16th inch bit is just going to go in and carve those detail areas. Now combined, as far as runtime, based on my speeds and feeds, it'll be about 1 hour and 7 minutes. 39 minutes for the finish cut of the 1/8 inch bit, 28 minutes for the detail cut of the 16th. Now let's come back in and let's calculate that with just the finish bit, the 16th. Let's calculate that with just the one bit, and let's do a comparison as far as time. Now this one is doing much more work, less step over, right? So it's doing more work and everything. So there is going to be, let me know if y'all can still hear me. My computer is catching up to itself. There we go. If we go and look at the time of just the finish bit, just the one bit is 37 minutes versus the hour and whatever it was, hour and 7 or something. So for me, I'm just running my finish bit. I don't need an 1/8 inch bit, it's half the time, right? Kind of thing. So the 3D finish cut will come in and do that. Now, in some cases, it's not always going to be like that, right? In some cases, having a larger diameter bit on your finish cut and then going to a smaller one to do the details, sometimes it works out just great and everything and all. But sometimes it just use the one bit that, your finish bit. So here is the one side. And then the final cut for this side, well, there's two more tool paths. There's you'll get a lesson in two-sided machining because I still got to do the alignment pins. But there's also a profile cut. So the profile cut is going to cut, I'm going to cut halfway through on my material, so 0.75. I'm going to cut on the outside of the line. I can reduce the passes. That's fine. I'm taking. It would help if I actually put in 0.75. There we go. I'm going to, on this, we talked about it last week, doing the separate last pass and things like that. I think I am going to add a ramp, and I'm going to just add a 1/2 inch ramp on that. And I'm not going to do the separate last pass on that one. Just going to calculate that. Okay, now I need to add tabs, but I just wanted to kind of take a look and make sure that I'm good there. Yep. So here's the deal. On the finished one, I do want to add tabs, and my tabs are going to get doubled. So if I want an 1/8 inch tab, 16th inch on side 1, 16th inch on side 2, they're going to meet in the middle. So in this case, I only want an 1/8 inch tab, so I'm going to set this to a 1/16 of an inch. And on the tabs, I'm just going to throw one right on the back of the heel here, the grip here and there. All right. I'm going to calculate that. Now, on this vector here, I'm going to copy that to the other side. So the tabs copy with it and everything on the other side. But now I also want to add my alignment pin. Since we're doing it as a two-sided job, might as well do it right. 0.25. I'll just go with 2 alignment pins for now. You can do however many you want, right? But 2's fine. This is going to be a drilling tool path for me. I always, in the wood, I always go 3/8 of an inch, and in my wasteboard, I go 1/4 of an inch, so 0.375. I'm going to use a 1/4 inch end mill. I am going to use pecking. I don't like to just, drill it down. Puts a lot of heat on the tip of the bit and dulls the tip of your bit. I'm a big advocate of peck whenever you can, but some people, they think it runs their time up, and it does. It adds run time, but sure does save on the life of the bit. Let's go ahead, and this is going to be my side 1 alignment holes. Let me mute Charlie. I dozed him off. All right, let's see here. Everybody else awake. I'm going to be like Emerald Lagasse here in just a minute. Bam! Wake up. Not you, Charlie. Go back to sleep. Sorry, but don't let me bore y'all now. Ask questions and we can interact and all that stuff. 4D, what's that? It's eating. Is that eating mushrooms on a roller coaster? It's like eating mushrooms on a roller coaster. We're going to flip this to side 2. But first, oh, you goofball, I need to copy my vectors over. And it's that monotone voice of mine, evidently. Let's copy to the other side. All right, on side 2, rinse and repeat. We'll do our wasteboard alignment holes. This is going to get carved on the wasteboard. It's going to be a drilling operation, and I'm going to go 1/4 of an inch deep. My pins, I went and bought I use it for a lot of different stuff, but I went and bought some 1/4 inch metal dowel stock from Lowe's, and I cut myself 2 1/2 inch pins out of that, and I use it, like I said, I use it for other things, but I cut 2 1/2 inch pins, length pins. Did some nice little filing and sanding, so they were nicely rounded on the ends and everything, no sharp edges and stuff, so they slide right into the holes nicely. But that 1/2 inch pin, if I go 3" on my project board, or 3/8 of an inch on my project board and 1/4 of an inch in my waste board, that gives me 1/8 of an inch of place, so I'm not bottoming out. You know, when I push that board down onto my pin, I have that clearance, so I'm not bottoming it out, holding my board up or anything like that. But you can use wooden dowel stock as well too. I just use metal pins.
Try the shelf pins, Laney.
That, you know, all right. So on the shelf pins, when I look at shelf pins and everything, they're round on one side and then they're flat for the wooden shelf board to sit on the other side. Are there shelf pins out there that are round all the way through?
Yeah. Menards, Amazon.
Yeah. Okay. So there's shelf pins that are just that are round. They're not like when I go to Lowe's to buy shelf pins, it's round on one side, it's flat on the other, you know, where the wood sits on. So that's why I just get the bar stock and everything. All right, Kool-Aid. Good here. Good, Gerard. Thank you. But I'll do that. I'll look that up, because that was they're probably already nicely filed on the ends and everything, and nicely clean and stuff, so they slide in there perfectly. So they're probably already ready to go, and they're probably about the right length too.
I think they're 1 inch.
Okay.
Let me look.
Yeah, and oak dowels here. Brooks Martin uses oak dowels. That's good. And do you peck drill with an upcut bit? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. We want to pull those chips up and out of that hole, no down cut. You're drilling. In my machining opinion, your drilling tool path should be with an upcut bit. Down cut bit, you're pushing that material down. It's also causing the bit to try to lift, and you don't get a good hole. Upcut bit. This is my waste board alignment holes, and calculate that. All right, now the final cut on this, or not the final cut, but we have our 3D rough, 3D finish, rinse and repeat. So we're going to select the vector, and we're going to go 3D rough. Everything still applies for the 3D rough. Calculate that. 3D finish, everything is still going to apply. Nothing's changing for that. And calculate. And then the profile cut. In the profile cut, we're just going to check off to add a draft. Let's close this. The profile toolpath. Cutting halfway through on the outside, we're going to add tabs, and they'll already be highlighted right there because we copied that vector over. We're going to add a ramp, not a draft. I said draft as the word, 1/2 inch ramp. And this will be our profile cutout. And so if we preview all of those tool paths, that should cut me all the way through with my tabs holding the part in if my material is 3/4 of an inch. All right, and so there's my part. Now, where an overcut distance might have shined, and my trigger area has got to get little bit deeper. Got to go a little bit deeper. But where an overcut distance might have shined is right in the middle here. I could have cleaned that up. But what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to take the tabs out so we can see this cut out. And I'm going to clean up this lip. So I don't know if you see this lip. This lip is caused from the difference of the cut between the rough cut and the finish cut. There's the rough cut cuts out farther than the finish cut. The finish cut just goes to the vector and it stops right here. So on that finish cut, if I let the bit, there's couple of ways that we can do this. If I let the bit go past the line, let's say that I let the bit go past the line by, let's say, 1/16 of an inch, too many decimals there, and I recalculate that, that could allow the bit to go over and kind of clean up that difference. Otherwise, on the profile cut, we do a pocket allowance or an allowance, offset allowance, and we bring that bit in a little bit. So let's preview this and let's see if it cleans up on this side. And so not really. Not much. Let me look at the tool path. I want to make sure that, oh, it would help if I was looking at the correct side. Yes, that cleaned it up. So let that bit go past. So let's go to the other side and do the same thing on the finish cut. And what we're looking at, just so you all know what we're looking at here, let me get back into position. This lip right here, this little kind of like step, if you will, on the model, that is the difference between where the rough cut and the finish cut. You know, the rough cut goes a little bit further out than the ball nose bit and everything, and it leaves this kind of this difference, this lip here. So what we're doing is we're letting the bit, the finish bit, go past the line a little bit, 0.0625. And that should go in and clean that up. Let's see here. On the 3D finishing toolpath, I like setting a plunge rate equal to the feed rate. Now, Brooks, yeah, so we talked about that a little bit last week when we talked about doing a profile cut with a spiral, ramp. We want the feed rate and the plunge rate to be the same so that it's like a toilet flush of water going down. Well, what you're doing with the 3D cut is because that bit is moving up and down, right? You know, it's traveling, you know, those highs and lows. And if we have a let's say a feed rate of 75 inches a minute, but a plunge rate of 15 inches a minute, there's a little bit of a slowdown, right? So as it's going, there's a little bit of a slowdown for that plunge. And the finish cut is really kind of doing just the detail work. So by putting the ramp and the plunge at the same speed for your finish cut, there's nothing wrong with that at all. Yep, helps with the runtime because you're removing that slowdown for the plunge cut and everything. So nothing wrong with that at all. So if we preview that visible cut, this allows the bit to come through and clean up that lip there. And so we have that nice, transition. Still got a little bit of meat that I have to do a little sanding, touch up sanding in the trigger area there, but that will be the model. So two-sided models. Now, again, when we import a two-sided model, we want it in the center. We want that 0 plane in the center. So that little slide bar, we want it in the middle, and we want to center the model. If we need the bit to carve beyond the center plane to get to some detail on the other side, that is the overcut distance when it's a two-sided job. And the overcut distance option only comes up when we're carving two sides. To learn more about that, go to the two-sided job tutorial, the Marlin job, and just pay close attention to when he's talking about the limit planes and overcut distances. He does a really good job of explaining the reasoning for that very well. And he's working with a model where it actually needs an overcut distance and 0 or limit plane. And so you can see it better, so you can better visualize it. So check out that tutorial on that section and everything. Okay. So I am going to let me see here. I'm going to have to bump Charlie out. Charlie, you with me? Are you there?
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to bring everybody. All right. Just wanted to get you. I wanted to try to, because I'm bringing everybody up for just a minute. And Ronnie, there we go. I wanted to try to get your attention for just a quick minute, Charlie, before I brought everybody up. So on the two-sided model, did I lose JR? I lost JR.
Yeah, it looks like it.
All right. Hopefully I'm still there. But the two-sided model, typically we want it centered, and there's very hardly ever a reason where it would be off-centered for whatever reason and all. It's always centered. And then if the bit needs to get to the other side, that's the limits, the overcut distance and the limit planes. And again, watch that tutorial on the Marlin. It explains it very well. With this, so tonight we have talked about importing a two-sided model, importing just a standard single-side model. And then we also talked about importing a 3D print type model and what we have to do with that type of model as far as embossing and everything. And unfortunately, it's one of the features that's what makes Aspire, and everything. And it's one of those incentives, to get people to go up to Aspire and all that stuff over time. But unfortunately, that option of embossing is not available in the VCarve software and everything. But everything else, if we're importing a two-sided model, if we're importing a single-sided model, everything else we talked about tonight can be done in all three of the softwares. It needs to be done in all three of the softwares. It's just the embossing feature that we talked about with that raven and skull we can't do. I believe, let me save this just in case somebody has a question on this one. This is 9/11. Cool. And then we're going to go new. Okay, who is that? Let's see. All right. So, guys, any input or feedback, Ronnie or Charlie, on 3D modeling? I mean, I don't know how much y'all do. Do you do a fair amount, or do you very, very little, or what's?
I haven't done any yet, but I'm looking forward to taking into the information that you provided. I do a lot of these It's funny you did a 1911 there. I do a lot of custom cases for a local 1911 manufacturer.
Right.
So I see an opportunity on some of the cases I make to do some of the, you did the Patriot box with.
Yes, and
the
I
VCarve.
still got to wrap that one up, but yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I see some opportunities right there.
Yes. We talked about that. You sent me some pictures, which, by the way, your boxes are beautiful. They're absolutely stunning, and everything. Yeah, I could definitely see that. I need to get that project wrapped up. We need to kind of revisit that project, get it wrapped up, so I can get you the files. But that is definitely.
Now it's just kind of making the decision. Do I want to do the 2.5 D carvings, or do I want to just stick with the VCarve?
Well, the lid of that Patriot box was an eagle and flag, right? And it was a 3D model, right? So that was the 2.5D model. The rest of it around the sides was V carving to create that raised look and all.
Right, but I'm looking at, how would it look if I did some of the from this class tonight? How would it look on the side of the cases going with some of the 2D modeling?
Yeah,
as opposed to the VCarve. I haven't seen either one yet. So
you could
get out there and do it.
Now, if these Patriot boxes, I don't know if you're selling or donating them or whatever, but the modeling is going to just, all it does is just, it's a little bit longer, right? But you can also get, more detail depending on what the model is you choose, versus the VCarve, which would be a little bit quicker, as far as runtime and stuff. And also you're not, it's V carving, right? So it's raised, but it has those angles and all versus, detailed, like a detailed 3D model and everything. So, in my opinion, both would look great, but a 3D model card box is always going to trump as far as aesthetics and look, a 3D model card box is going to usually stand out more. And everything.
I like the detail on the sides.
Brooks, I can.
Probably not so much on the lids because I'm starting to use a lot of curly maple, and I don't really like touching that grain pattern with any type of carvings on them. So, but on the sides, definitely.
For sure. Yep. I'm hard pressed on that curly maple to do anything. It's too beautiful. That's the things with figured woods and stuff. Really quickly, let me look. Brooks asked if I could just kind of go over the sculpting tool. We talked about the sculpting tool last week, but we're going to go over it again here in just a second. But I want to make sure that I imported all the models. So bear with me just a second here. And it's a Colt 1911, not a 911. I don't know why I've got this. Let me bear with me because that's going to drive me nuts. 911 was something completely different. Okay, rename. Okay, so this is the new Eagle. Oh, okay. One more real quick import to talk about, and let's import this. Some imports. When we talked about that sliding bar, the modeling plane, and we talked about using it to remove model thickness on the back of a model. Like if a model is really thick and you need to kind of trim the fat a little bit, so you don't lose a lot of your detail, sliding that modeling plane in this next window here, sliding it up or down to, trim and everything. Well, some models, let me back this up like this. Some models, if you can see, there are areas of this model that kind of go beyond the zero plane or beyond, you know, its surface and stuff. And I, when importing, let me get this sized right. First of all, let's scale it down to an appropriate size, and it's kind of a square model. So my board is 8 by 11. So let's go 7.5. Apply and center. In this particular model, these light blue areas here are what give this model depth. It kind of, it's like paper tearing, if you will, right? Or cloth tearing. You know, this eagle's tearing through this cloth and everything. Well, the one thing that I love about this eagle is that it's tearing through this cloth, right? The one thing I dislike about this particular project is this speckled pattern right here. I would prefer it had been smooth. If I wanted to bring this into, let's say, a flag model where the seagull's kind of busting through this flag or something like this, this speckled has no place in it at all and everything. Now I can go through, and this is what Brooks is talking about, sculpting, right? I can go through and do some smoothing to try to get rid of as much of that as I can. But I can also try to remove a lot of that. I could try to attempt to remove that during the import process with sliding this down, but bringing it up just a little bit. Let me get in here. And if you look, when you're looking at this, if I'm below the zero plane, you see how foggy and faded that blue is when I'm below the zero plane. When I bring that zero plane down, all the areas that are above the zero plane, they become kind of a more highlighted blue, right? Now they're not that cloudy blue and everything. And what I could try to do is I could try to bring this down to get, and this one won't let me do it in this case. There's not enough of the model, but because I would lose some of this back here. But I could try to, you know, bring this modeling plane up a little bit to see if I could eliminate some of that speckle, get rid of it, you know, where it just doesn't import it. The only problem with that is if I go to where the speckle is on this particular model, let's say there, when I import this, and everything. Oops. Hold on one second. Bear with me 1 second. I need to undo that. Let me delete that. I had it checked off as a two-sided thing. Brought in the upside down and the top side and the bottom side. Let me bring that in just really quick one more time. One more time, scale it. Let's go 7.5. Apply, center, position, and import. Uncheck that. Discard the data below the zero plane. And let me see if I can bring this back down. And import. I can try to import this in a way where I could eliminate some of that speckle, but the only problem with that is I eliminate part of the crucial parts of the model, right? It no longer shows like I'm trying to tear through fabric. So what we need to do instead is sculpting, right? So to lead into Brooks's request on the sculpting brush, we're going to import this in. And in this case, once again, we're going to scale it 7.5, 7.5, apply, center model, position, slide the slide bar all the way to the bottom, import it in. Now, this particular model, another thing I don't like about it is that it's not really organic on it's square, right? And if I try to lower it down again, I lose some of the fabric tearing and stuff. And also, if I try to import this, let's say I wanted to put this in a wavy flag, it comes in as this square. There's no real organicness to it. So I like to go in and create a vector and use the tool to remove some of the area. So basically, I'll come in and I can freehand draw this quickly. Bear with me just a second. All right, I'll select this vector and the 2 endpoints. I'll click on the button to bring the 2 endpoints to a common point of intersection to close that off. And I'll select the model, select that vector, and I'm going to use the modeling tool to remove everything outside of that selected vector. Right, and try to kind of give me a little bit of more organicness, because when I sink this down into my flag model or something like that, I can smooth and measure, smooth this a lot better than those square corners and stuff. All right, now let's talk about these speckles and everything. I don't like these speckles and stuff. So the sculpting tool, if I come in here and I use the sculpting tool, the first thing that I'm going to do is, twiddle the view. It's a British thing. But kind of turn this to where I can work and everything. And then the first tool that I'm going to try to clean up with is the smoothing tool. And so also, if I'm tearing and stuff, I can also use the smudge tool to kind of pull the fabric and kind of create wrinkles in it, if you will, and stuff. So we'll look at that as well. But here I want a diameter. I'll use my mouse roller wheel for the diameter, but the strength, I want this to be, I want to try to flatten that area out as much as possible. So I'm going to turn the strength up to damn near all the way. And then the smoothness, I want, the best that I can. Try to preserve the transparency where I can and show the full model. And what I want to do is I want to try to tone this down, right, to the best that I can. And I'm just going to continue kind of sculpting. Now, be careful if I don't want to smooth the edges of my eagle at such a harsh setting, which I don't, then you really got to kind of pick your battles and stuff, with that brush, because this is where twiddling your view, moving your view around to get, like, if you can't see certain areas, don't just drag your mouse up in there, because if your mouse hits the edge, it's going to just start smoothing whatever it runs over, right? So go around your areas and then turn to a better view, right, where you can work and get into those other little nooks and crannies and stuff. But we want to just, what I'm doing here is literally I'm just trying to eliminate to the best that I can with what I've got these speckles, right? So I'm just trying to kind of clean them up. And I want to continue that. I'm not going to do this whole thing. It would just take way too long and everything, but I'm going to try to get as close as I can without, hitting anything and that I don't want to smooth out. But on my edges, I will end up smoothing them, but it will be at a less strength. And it'll be a less smoothness and all, because when I come over the edges and everything here, all I want to do is just kind of round those edges, right? I want to just kind of smooth out those edges and things. I don't want to, let me turn that strength up just a little bit more. make your diameter so where it's just kind of focusing on those edges, but I just want to round those edges off and those sharp points and things when I'm up here. But when I'm down on the surface below and everything, I'm staying off the upper surfaces, right? The claws and the flag and all that stuff. When I'm down here, and I want to try to get as close as I can, but I also want to just, flatten out and try to, it's still going to be a rough texture. There's still going to be that rough texture underneath, but it's not going to be as bad. So sculpting will allow me to do that. Now, this will just take time, right? It just takes time and patience and working it. This is where one of those things for me, where a tablet and a pen, right? I'm working my mouse right now, but, being able to, go in and brush with a pen and a tablet, using the sculpting brush, it becomes much more easier. And then trying to use a mouse with the sculpting brush and everything. But I don't use my tablet very often. I have a Huion tablet and pen that, I can come in and I can, sculpt and everything. And when I'm sculpting, which I don't do a whole lot of that much and everything, I like a pen tablet situation, but it's not for everybody, right? Now that Huion tablet, that's a 16-inch tablet. It's an amazing tablet and everything, and it's on sale always at Amazon. It's just I think it's on sale less than 100 or a little over $100. But normal, they can get up to very expensive and all. But it's the Huion. I believe it is a 16-inch tablet and pen, but it's nice. And so now one of the things also to be careful of when we're in our edges, depending on our strength and everything, make sure that we don't, ruin our edges too much. I want to actually undo that. I'm going to use the undo brush. I'm going to turn this down real small, and I'm going to run the undo brush right back over the edge. You can see that speckling goes right to the edge, so that's why it did that. But why am I concerned about that edge? When I bring this into my wavy flag and everything, I want to be able to blend. So that is the smudge tool. Imagine, all right, let me show you smudging. So imagine this tear right here. I want to pull this material where my dot is, that green dot. I want to pull that down in to this surface down here. I'm smudging it. So when I come here, let me turn the strength up a little bit. I'm going to go about 40, smoothness 75, diameter I'll control with my mouse. Now for this, I'm going to actually turn off the green dot for a minute. So I want you to be able to see the purple dot, but in here, I'm going to kind of pull, and I'm pulling this material. Now I wouldn't actually do this with a tear. I'm just showing you what the smudging tool does, but I'm actually kind of pulling this material, all this material up here. I'm kind of pulling it out, and I'm kind of spreading the wealth. And it's basically kind of just like taking, when I'm molding clay, right? You're just smoothing that out, and you're pulling some material from over here over to there, right? Kind of thing. And so I'm pulling the material from here to wherever I need to pull it to, right? So depending on what I want, on this peak and everything, instead of that straight up and down that was over there, I might want to pull this out a little bit, right? So it's a little bit further. So I'm kind of just pulling it out and stuff. And I'm smudging that, right? And then once I get it smudged, then I go back to the smoothing tool, right? And then I'll come over here in the smoothing tool, and I'll kind of clean up here to blend those areas in that I just pulled in and stuff, and kind of smooth that out, right? So I'm just pulled that claw, which of course I wouldn't do, but let me twiddle my view and get up close and personal with this. but I pulled that claw out and then I kind of smoothed it all out where I kind of pulled. I wouldn't actually do that to this model, but I'm just showing you what the smudge tool does. You take material from one area and you're pulling it into another. You're smudging it into another, kind of thing. If I was adding material, again, depending on the strength and everything, I'm literally building material up. So I'm increasing the Z height of this model. Now, it might not look like I'm doing anything here other than just creating a little fin right there. But if I turn this thing, if I twiddle this view around, I have added a lot of material, a lot of Z height to that model, right? And everything. And that's what when you're adding material, you're building up. And if you are in the add tool and you're just sitting on an area, and you're kind of moving, you're plumping that up. So every time I cross over, I'm raising it up, and it's like a bad acne scar, right? You know what I mean? If I'm subtracting material or removing material, then I'm taking that material away. So as I run over it, I'm putting it away. Now here's the thing. I'm taking it away, but I'm also sinking in. If I twiddle the view around, I've kind of created let me do this. I kind of created a concave, right? So while I was trying to just reduce that hill I created, I ended up, it ended up taking away the material that's underneath. It kind of sank it down and stuff. So you got to be mindful. You got to be careful with that. So when you're removing, if your purple dot is outside of the area that you're trying to remove, make it as small as you need to remove the material that you're trying to remove, right? But if it's wider and it's folding over, that purple circle, if it's folding over into something, it's removing that material too. It's not only removing, what it's draped over, but it's also removing anything that purple's touching, it's removing. So it ended up creating that cavern. Now, the wonderful thing about all this is the undo brush, and I'll just make it big because whatever I run over with the undo brush, it just puts everything right back to the way it was, right? So the undo brush just puts everything right back to the way it was. Okay, so that's the wonderful thing about the undo brush. It puts everything back, and then I could just, if I screwed up and hit somewhere that I wasn't supposed to, then I could come back and, I could, come back and redo it, undo it with the undo brush and then come back and redo what I need to do. So the sculpting tool, Brooks, is it's a finesse tool, right? We're taking a model and we're finessing the smoothing in certain areas. We're smudging and we're kind of spreading the wealth on some things. We're adding material if we need to, or taking it away. We might build shapes and models and stuff, and then from those shapes, we might need to, like if I added one circle and another circle and another circle on top of each other, kind of almost in a conical form, I might need to take that circle and smudge them together to where it's like I'm creating a wave, right? Which I don't want to create an undercut in a model, but just imagine I'm kind of creating a wave. So I'm using circles to stack. But now I'm going to take and smudge that clay and smooth everything, with the smudge tool. And then I'm going to come back and smooth it. I'm using the wrong words there. I'm going to smudge everything to create the shape. And then I'll come back and I'll smooth and finesse it. If I need to add material in a certain area, I can add material. If I need to take it away, I need to take it away. And so that's what our brush is. Now, when we're adding material, we can also add what's called a component brush. A component brush is, if I go into the C drive, users, public documents, Vectric files, Vectric files, sculpting brushes. There are some default sculpting brushes. Again, C drive, user, public documents, Vectric files, sculpting brushes. So in that folder, you can also create a shortcut to it if you need to. There are some default type brush textures that you could use. And then there's some that, you can DIY and make your own. I've made a few. So on this one, let's say that the splash right here, just as an example, let's say I use that. And in here, let's make that splash a little bit bigger. A single click is going to add that, that splash there. But, I might want to, for whatever reason, I might want, if it was a certain texture, I might want to rub and bring it out. Well, the only problem is my strength is up way too high for a texture brush. Let me undo that. Should have known better to begin with, but it's way too high for a texture brush. Because when I'm using a component brush, adding texture, component brush, when I'm doing that, I need the strength turned down a little bit, smoothness up a little. That's good, but that strength and everything, because if I hover or if I drag this, it's building, right? So if my strength is high, then I'm building material, right? And so that's not what I want with this. I want to kind of click and I want to put these splashes everywhere. And let me undo it again. And in this case, the splash isn't really the tool I actually want to use for this, because all it does is, it's not really that great. It just adds that little detail, right? That little splash. That's not the brush. The brush I'd like to use for this that might make my texture a little bit more appealing would be the cracks, right? And so in here, and I'll actually turn the strength up a little bit higher on this one and turn the smoothness down. It's hard to see in that area, but let's find that. Let me find a smooth. I don't think I have here's a smooth area to show you what the crack looks like. So if I add it there, it just creates kind of that stone texture-y look, right? So I might, in this case, we just talked about erasing. I want to get rid of the speckle, right? Now I'm showing you how to put speckle back. But I want to erase the speckle if I'm going to use it in a model. I don't like that speckle at all. But some models I might want to add texture. I might want to give it a rock type texture. I might want to give it like grass type texture or fur and everything. And there's brushes, default sculpting brushes in your component brushes. There are brushes default in there that you can use that will give you the effect of grass or feathers or fur and things like that. In this case, this would give you kind of a stone texture, right? So this is the sculpting tool. So you have your diameter and strength. Diameter can be controlled with if you have a roller wheel on your mouse, it's the size of the tool. And it can be controlled with the size of your mouse. The twiddle your view is a way to move your view around. Now here's the thing. If I hold down my middle mouse button as a button, I can twiddle my view. If I right click, I'm sorry, give me just a second. The alternate key, when I'm in a brush or a tool, if I don't want to switch over to the twiddle view and everything, I can hold down the alternate key. Come on now, work with me. At any time allows you to view twiddle from any tool. Hold Alt. There we go. That's what I'm trying to do. So I should be able to hold the Alt key and Is it because I'm in a component brush? Bear with me a second. Hold the control to apply a smooth pass after the deposit. Give me a second. Hold the alternate key at any time to allow viewing twiddling from any tool. So if I'm in the smudge tool, I should be able to turn my board Give me just a second. I got to find the right. There used to be hold Alt at any time to allow viewing twiddling. That's what I'm doing. Oh, God, I'm such a friggin' idiot. I'm pushing Alt on my other keyboard. God almighty, Laney. Hold on a second. So when I hold the Alt key on the right keyboard, ladies and gentlemen, that allows me to twiddle the view. I'm pushing Alt going, how come that's not working? I have two keyboards in front of me, so you have to forgive me. So the alternate view, when you're drawing, let's say I'm smoothing or doing whatever, the alternate key allows me to twiddle the view without having to make the extra mouse click over to the twiddle thing. Right? It allows me to kind of turn around and stuff and everything. That's what I was trying to show for the last 5 minutes there. But that's your sculpting brush, Brooks. Hopefully that I want to kind of wrap this up. I don't want to run till 11 o'clock tonight again, but that's it. And so let's answer a couple of questions here. JR says, and JR's back. I think JR's back. Yes, JR, welcome back, bud.
Thank you.
JR says the low shelf pens pack is item number 36755, and it is great. Thank you. $1.24 plus tax. Cool, man. And it's Hillman, right? Okay. That's in the specialty bins, most likely, probably. So, yeah, cool. Vectric showcased V12 previewed the 3D view vector creation tool today. Awesome. So Vectric showed a preview of the 3D view vector tool. Yes. That's great. And is that video that Brooks, is that video still out? So basically Vectric put out a video kind of previewing the show vector. In here, when we're in the 3D model, let me close this out. Yes. You know how we have to, like if we're looking at our 2D view, and let's say we have vectors. Let's say I create a profile vector around this model. Right? When I'm in the 3D view, I can't, it's 3D view or 2D view. Well, what Vectric showed today and everything is in V12. You can, when you're in the 3D view, you can see your 2D vectors, right? So it's a pretty cool feature, and you can toggle them on or off. So let's see here. Yes, that's my issue. I've scaled back the strength, getting better, but it's a learning feel, right? Yeah, exactly, Brooks. It's a learning feel when you're sculpting and stuff. The sculpting tool size is dependent on the modeling resolution, and the sculpting tool size is dependent on the modeling resolution, the diameter and everything. You're saying that the tool size, the sculpting diameter size, is based on the model resolution. Let me bear with me just a second. I got to I'm going to turn this down to standard for a moment. Oops. So 301, that's my maximum. I just want to see if there's any change. So that's my max 301. Bear with me just a second. I'm going to hold down the shift key let's go to the extremely high. Oops. I see what you mean. Yep. So the modeling resolution, thanks for pointing that out, Brooks. When it's higher, we can do more detail. And so that's what it's addressing. And when it's lower resolution, we don't have as much detail, so it's less. That's interesting. Very, very good fact. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. That's cool, man. That's cool. It's cool. And that also plays a role, that probably would play a role with our component brush also, the sculpting brush size and the component brush size and everything. Yep, I could see that. If we were doing add here, right, and maxing that out versus if I was in a low resolution, we'll go standard, select that model, go into sculpting. I have, of course I have a bigger brush, which also means I would have a bigger sculpting brush. Right. Yep. Cool beans. Anyway, discard all that. But cool stuff. Well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, it's 10:21. Tonight we covered the things that I wanted to talk about. And basically it was to just kind of, we talked about the componentry, we talked about components, we talked about, composite model, we talked about all the different tools, little introduction to those tools. Well, now tonight I wanted to kind of cover like importing, right? So importing models and working with those different types of model types and things to import, two-sided, embossed type models, or those 3D print type models, and then just a standard single side model. I don't know if we continue on and next week and do things like let's say make a wavy flag with some details and stuff in it, or if we move on to a different topic and then we'll come back to modeling and stuff. Y'all let me know in the chat what you would prefer. But this series, there's still more to cover. There's a lot to talk about in 3D modeling and things like that. But also there's topics that you guys wanted to talk about like VCarve inlays or inlays period. There was other things, node editing and all. But let me know what you want. If you'd like to continue to a more in-depth where we actually model something next week, we can. But we can do that, or we can talk about something different. But inlays. So we got Roger S saying do inlays, right? And I've been wanting to do inlays. Oh, also there was another one, stack text, right? Somebody wanted to talk about stack text, so that would be a topic to come up at all. Yeah, I'm thinking whatever you're comfortable with, right? I'm thinking that we take a break on the models and we do something different so it can relate to everybody, and then we'll come back and do a model project or something like that. I think that's what we'll do. All right, everybody. Well, listen, Charlie.
Yes, sir.
Ronnie, JR, thank you all for joining me tonight. I appreciate you all as always. And hopefully this wasn't too bad, too boring, or too novice, right? Hopefully somebody got something out of it, right? Let's see here. Ronnie Ferrier says, thanks, Lenny. Appreciate the level of detail you go into. Look forward to applying the instructions on some of your work. So thank you, man. I appreciate that as well. I want to, as always, I do want to thank all of you that are members. I have to look. I didn't look today to see if I have any new members. So if you are new, a new member, a new paid member, and I'm not aware of you yet, I apologize. If your name's on the list, it will be next week. But for each and every one of you that are members that are attending tonight and not attending, but are members that are on this list, thank you all. It really helps out a lot. You have no idea what your support means to me and does for me and does for my business. And evidently it doesn't help pay for my damn internet or technical issues yet. But we're working on that. We're working on that. I will get that figured out. I will figure out what's going on and everything. But I'm glad we cleared up to get through this fast tonight. But I'm sorry about the first 15 minutes and everything that we took so long. And guys, I appreciate you being on screen with me. I'll one of these days I'll get it to where I can only need one computer. So y'all can stay online with me while I'm working and stuff, like all the other guys do. Right now I have to kick you off so I can go big and all that stuff. All right, everybody. Y'all have a wonderful night.
Thanks, Laney.
Thanks for joining me. We'll see you next week. All right.
Thanks, Laney. Good night.
Okay. Bye.